Hello everyone, welcome to Book In. And Book In, as I'm sure you all know by now, is a podcast about all things literary, about great books, not so great books, which I do with my brother Charlie. I'm Rupert Fordham, he's Charlie Fordham, and we've done 20 episodes in total. Most recently, we've just completed a series on recent Booker Prize winners, which I hope you all had a chance to listen to. And today we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to come up with a system by which we can rank all the books that we've read and that we will read in the future. And being, middle-aged men of a certain age, there's nothing we like more than a list and arguing about what should be on a list and where it should be on a list. And of course, that applies to books as much as anything else. And Charlie has come up with a system by which we're going to rank all these books, to grade all these books, to mark them, if you like. And we're going to mark them from 0 to 10. So all the effort and all the great fountain of genius that has gone into so many of these wonderful works of art is going to be reduced to a mark out of 10.
A number. It's like an Ofsted inspection.
Exactly, an Ofsted inspection. But you can't do that, Charlie, because it's offensive, isn't it? It's upsetting. So it'll be a much more nuanced version of that. Charlie's going to talk about that a bit, some of the thinking behind it. We're then going to explain to you what the various grades are and what you have to do to qualify to get a particular grade. And we're then going to go through the books we've read so far and mark them. And I'm going to give them a mark. Charlie's going to give them a mark. We might have a bit of discussion. And the Book In final mark will be the average of our two. So, Charlie, this was your idea. Explain yourself.
Thank you, Rupert. So, as you said, we typically deal with high-level works of literature. So we're not really grading whether a work is a good book or a good text. We're grading whether it's a great one. And to that end, I think our scale is measuring greatness. So Picasso said, painters transform the sun into a yellow dot. Artists transform a yellow dot into the sun. And what he's implying is there's a difference between craft, which uses necessary, important skill, and genius, which seems to come from somewhere deep in the creative spirit and transforms reality into something new. And it's that we're measuring. And we want to evaluate and differentiate between great text. So we're introducing, Rue, the Book In greatness scale, which, like everything else, can be reduced to a appropriate acronym, the big. Book In greatness, big. The big scale, if you like. So we're gonna rate and rank novels 1 to 10 on a greatness scale. And because I work in the public sector, I've come up with criteria for each grade, which we're going to go through before we grade the texts.
Will it have to go through a committee at the end of this? It probably will.
There's a consistency committee and quality assurance processes
Yes.
and levels of governance. All of
Yes.
that, yes, of course.
Excellent.
So, but just to be clear, the scale is ranking how great they are. Therefore, some books that we cover, we may have enjoyed, we may consider them really good books, but they may get a 2 or a 3 on a greatness scale. And as I'm going to explain, as we're going to talk through, that really is comparing them, to Hamlet or to War and Peace or whatever. So it can seem brutal, but our aim is to be clear. And I'm going to run through the criteria unless there's anything you want to ask or add, Rick.
No, it occurs to me actually that we've talked a lot about F.R. Leavis, and of course he's
called the zero. Oh, sorry, you're not talking about him, right? No,
no, he actually sort of did the same thing, didn't he? He said the great novelists are, and he named 4 of them and explained why he thought they were great novelists. So we're not alone.
We're on F.R. Leavis on hyperdrive because we're not only comparing them and saying which the great ones are, we're actually giving them a number. I mean, F.R. Leavis would be so impressed.
Good. Okay, so let's go through the ranking system, Charlie. For a book to score 10 out of 10, or a work of literature to score 10 out of 10, you tell me what it needs to contain and what it needs to be.
So to be 10, each of these has a kind of, I've come up with this 3 or 4 word kind of tagline and then an explanation. So for 10, Root, never been bettered. So these are the few texts in a genre that have never been bettered anywhere at any time in world literature. The absolute GOATs, to use a football term, greatest of all time. So the Lionel Messis and Cristiano Ronaldos, if you follow football. So I'd be thinking, and I'm going to use a few examples as we go through, which kind of implies we've ranked these, but I reserve the right, if we actually do a podcast on some of these texts, to say, actually having thought about it, that's a different mob. But nonetheless, so in drama, we'd be thinking of King Lear, I think, Oedipus Rex. In poetry, Dante's Divine Comedy, maybe Homer. In novels, War and Peace, Anna Karenina. So we were talking about texts of which you could say there's never been a better example than that.
It's interesting. In those examples, only 2 what you think of as novels, which actually, as it happens, were written 150 years ago, 130 years ago, both by one man, Tolstoy.
Indeed. I'm sure I could have listed more Shakespeare.
Yes.
And more novels. Just a few examples.
We'll come on to that later on, won't we? More Shakespeare.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so that's number 10. Number 9?
So 9 for me is...
Not number 9. I mean, what do you get to score 9?
9 out of 10. Good distinction. Glad we clarified. Thank you. So Beyond Genius. So this is, one of the few truly great texts in world literature, but actually not quite in the category of never been bettered. So it's possible something like Paradise Lost. We might decide it was a 10, but we might think Paradise Lost, Chaucer, again, Ulysses and Proust, you could argue they're a 10, but possibly those kind of texts might fit into a 9. Maybe Dostoevsky, the brothers Karamazov. And there might be some Shakespeare, which isn't actually in his kind of elite set of texts that would fit in here. So, it'd be those sorts of texts.
Yeah, there's going to be some Shakespeare that's going to come quite low down on this list, I'd have thought.
Honestly, literally, because some of it is co-written, very experimental. He's playing around with forms, and some it's not, not that great.
Okay, 8?
8 is a clear masterpiece. So that's my tagline for 8 out of 10. It's a clear work of genius. And the very best of English novels, we're going to talk about some of them today, might well fit here. Don't want to preempt anything. Other texts I'm thinking there might be something like The Prelude, clear masterpiece, probably some Samuel Beckett in my mind. So these are fantastic texts. You might think, why are they not a 9 or 10? Because there has to be room at the top of the scale for texts that are above them. And just to be clear, we're not giving 8.3 or 8.8. There's nothing beyond 10. No, 110%, Gary, as gets said on Match of the Day quite a lot. So clear masterpiece.
God, Samuel Beckett, 8 out of 10. Okay.
You could disagree, Roo. We are divided by books, I believe.
Okay, 7. What's a 7 then?
Great, but slightly flawed. So we still say these are great novels, great poems or poetry, great poetry, great drama, but they're flawed. So the texts, all texts are flawed. All texts have stronger or weaker aspects, but flawed here doesn't mean it's less than perfect. It's rather that there are some, I suppose, ultimately quite fundamental aspects that stop it from being fully a masterpiece.
I can think of a well-known 19th century novelist this might apply to.
Dickens?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And excuse me, we haven't done any Dickens yet, but we will soon. Again, without sort of contradicting or determining what we're going to say in the future, I write like Dickens has quite significant flaws that affect your experience of reading Dickens, despite the incredible things that are in it. And there might be some writers who, just by comparison, don't quite hit that masterpiece level. So I might think someone like Yeats would get in about here, though some would say he's higher. Emily Dickinson, perhaps. Christopher Marlowe, possibly, as a playwright, might, come in at this sort of level. It's great writing, no question, but there are kind of flaws in the writing that stop you from really saying, clearly, this is a masterpiece.
God, Yeats, all that sort of Celtic stuff.
Celtic Twilight. Love it.
Okay, me not so much, but we'll come to that. Okay, so what, 6?
So my tagline here is superb but not great. So
Mm,
again, obviously, even as I read it, it sounds slightly, you could say, what do you mean by that? Of course. But,
yeah,
that's what I've got in mind there is somewhere just below a great novel. So in
yeah,
this range, novels, poets, or plays, they may lack the emotional depth or the intellectual range of the greatest text. So for me, there might be writers like Philip Roth or Saul Bellow, Herzog, American Pastoral, which I think are amazing novels that might fit in here. A bit more controversially because it's a much loved text in some quarters, but beloved by Toni Morrison, perhaps
yeah.
William Faulkner. So it's
Okay.
writers who are clearly high level, fantastic writers. Would we accord them the tag of great text? Not sure. So
Mm.
that's what we'll be debating. But superb but not great is a 6.
Quite a lot of Americans in this category, I notice. Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing there. But part of that is to be clear, is because we're actually going to marking quite a few English texts later on in this podcast. I'm deliberately avoiding some of those.
Okay. So 5. So sort of halfway down. What sort of writers are you going to have in this one?
So my line is very fine, but
Hmm.
ultimately limited. So it's
Okay.
wonderful writing. It's got proper originality,
Hmm.
perhaps, but it's kind of got a ceiling. You read it, you feel it's got a kind of ceiling to its range or its impact. So for me, a writer like Hemingway might fit here. E.M. Forster, perhaps even War. Again, you could debate because there's clearly quite stronger and weaker aspects to War. What about maybe Christina Rossetti as a poet? I don't know. So we're talking about,
Mm.
clearly wonderful writers writing very fine texts, but there's a kind of, there's kind of quite significant qualification in terms of the limit of the writing, perhaps.
Okay. Very good. So below 5 is 4. So we're now into sort of areas where, people might get a bit upset if you were scoring only 4 out of 10.
Indeed. Yeah. And we're in the bottom half of the greatness scale. So
Yes.
this is writing that's not great. So 4, my line is really good, but
Mm.
clearly not great. So
Yeah.
the writing might be brilliant, but perhaps it doesn't rise above its time or its genre. It might be incredibly funny, but that's kind of all there is to it.
Mm.
So, for me, a text like To Kill a Mockingbird, which is an absolutely wonderful text, but it's kind of limited because of it to me, it's almost like a children's text, or it's written for a certain time of life. And similarly, actually, again, don't want to make out that all the Americans are occupying our scale, but Catcher in the Rye, again, regarded as an absolute classic novel by some, but to me, it's got quite a limited scope.
Mm.
And I think quite a few top recent texts that we just may not be confident are
Mm.
going to last, the test of time, might fit
Yeah.
into this kind of place in the scale.
That's such an interesting point because you often don't know, do you, when a book
For
comes
sure.
out? It's
Yeah.
very hard to tell how good it really is and how it'll settle in people's consciousness over time.
And it's just our opinion, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, we're just saying, here's what we think about this text.
Yes.
It's stating the obvious that our scale doesn't have any official status yet.
Okay. Right. We're getting into sort of patronizing territory now. So 3 out of 10, Charlie.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not, because there's a couple of novels I'm thinking of giving 3 to
Yeah.
today
Okay.
that I really, really like.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, so my line is successful, strong. So lots of recent novels I think are going to make in this fit in this grade. In some cases, it might just be hard to sort of, as we said, a bit like number 4, assess impact. I think some older novels that were brilliant in their time, but just haven't really aged well. So again, for me, Trollope is sort
Mm-hmm.
of on a greatness scale coming in around here.
Mm-hmm. Thackeray.
Possibly. I've only read Vanity Fair to be
Yeah.
honest, which I think is fantastic. So I might put that higher. I'm not sure, but that kind, yes, lots of Victorian poets for sure.
So I didn't put you on the spot on a particular book.
No, please do.
Okay. So 2 out of 10, Charlie. What only gets 2 out of 10?
So it's a pretty successful text. Good. My word is good. It's a good text.
Well done. You've written a good book.
Good. So it's a pretty successful text, but it lacks the punch and range of the best, or might have some tremendous aspects, but it's actually got variable quality.
Yeah.
So it's 3 is successful and strong. So we're falling short of saying it's wholly successful. It's kind of like a good novel, lots of really good things about it, but there's probably some inconsistency.
Okay, good. And there are some
Right.
books. There are some books we're going to give 1 out of 10 to, aren't there? Well, there may not be.
But I think we'll explain why. I mean, we're getting into the area of we don't like this text. So it's overrated,
Yeah.
would be my line for it. Inconsistent, not wholly successful. It's probably got some annoying aspects. I mean, I do find, I'm sure you do too, that you read some books and they kind of annoy you in their style or what have you. And it's one I wouldn't, one would not be one I'd recommend or want to reread. Whereas a 2,
Yeah. Okay.
and then there's a 0.
Well, this is the books in greatness scale, and if a book is shouldn't be on that scale, we're going to give it a 0, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a no.
It's a no. That's your strapline, is it? No.
No. Yeah, no, doesn't make it onto the scale. And it sounds ridiculous. It doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad book, but it's just it's thin. It's not worthy of consideration at this level. You might well be read in book groups. People really like it or quite like it or whatever. We'd give it a 0 because it's just there's nothing great about it at all. But again, and so that's my criteria. What do you think? Is that going to cover us through?
No, it's very good. I think they're very clever gradations. Actually, I think it's not easy to come up with a declining but steady level of grades. It's obviously only a man who's been grading schools for 10 years.
Using criteria relentlessly. Yeah. So I think there is some repetition in some of that phrasing, but.
No, it's good. It's a good exercise. However, there are some books, as you say, that we like very much and we admire very much, which on this big scale are going to get quite low marks. But that's not the whole story, is it? And we've also talked, I think, about the possibility of having, just to complicate matters, an alternative or a second grading system. And this would be much more about our own personal response to those books in a sort of day-to-day modern context. We're reading them, you and me. Do we like them? Do we admire them? And what on that basis, not in relation to King Lear and Ulysses, on that basis, what would we give them out of 10? And I think our plan is also to have a second system applying those criteria. And I think we might come up with some different scores, actually.
So what I think, Roo, is we're not going to have any we're not going to have a scale in the sense of write out criteria for this. It's just going to be a subjective judgment. Yes. I was thinking, just to make it clear that it's different from the scale above, we could do up to 5 stars, but in this scale we'd be allowed to do half. So in essence, it's out of 10. It's just so we give it 3.5 stars out of 5, 4.5 stars out of 5, etc. So that way, and it's a book review grade basically. So let's say that I would give The 7 Moons of Marley Almeida 3 out of 10, for example. I might say on a book review scale, I'm giving that 4.5 stars out of 5. But what I mean by that is it's a really fantastic recent novel, and what I'm comparing it to is recent books, probably written in the last 10 years or so, other novels that are out at the moment. Here's how it rates compared to those.
So I should tell you that I'm in a book club myself, and I've been in it it's been going for about 12 or 13 years now, and we've read 80 or 90 books, I think. And we do exactly this. We score them out of 10. And it's very much on this basis. It's your own reaction to the book. And the way we tend to do it is we assign sort of half the score, so 5 out of 10 to what do we think of it technically, what do we think of its resonance in literature generally, and is it very well done, and is it something you should admire? That's half the score, and the other half is did you like it? Did you enjoy reading it, and how much did you enjoy reading it? So it combines both sides of it, which I think is what we're trying to do really in what you've just described.
Well, let's do that. That sounds great. So we could half, almost like break it down for ourselves. Half is the quality, half is the enjoyment.
Exactly. And I won't tell you today, but one day I will, if it becomes appropriate, I'll share some of those scores with you.
Interesting.
Because some
Yeah.
of them are books that we're reviewing ourselves on this podcast.
Okay. I mean, just to make the point though, I think for older texts, let's say, for example, The Great Gatsby, I don't see, we're going to give it a number. I don't see the point in giving it a book review grade. To me, it's only those lower marks for recent books
Okay.
that I think it's worth us doing that. Because otherwise, I think it's going to get a bit pointless because, Emma, what's that? That's 5 stars. Great Gatsby, that's 5 stars. 1984, that's clearly 5 stars. They're all going to be 5 stars at the top end, every single one of them.
Yeah.
So we're really only talking about those books that come in the bottom half of the scale, really those which are recent. So, because I think that it's potentially, I want to avoid misleading people into thinking if we give it a low mark on the greatness scale, that means we don't think it's a good or enjoyable book.
Okay, fair enough. So,
can I just make a couple other sort of criteria type rules type things? One is if it's a novel, we're going to grade the novel, but sometimes we'll do a poet, and I think if we do a podcast on it, we should have a stab at putting it on the greatness scale. So we're doing Sylvia Plath coming up soon, Roo, but we're only looking at a couple of poems in any detail. We then get to that thing of, what if you've graded T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland? You may not be grading Eliot other poetry. Do you know what I'm saying? So we're just going to have to do that as we go along.
Yeah.
And similarly, we might do a play like Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, but we might come back for different plays by Tom Stoppard. Or some poets, we might just say, okay, for the whole of Larkin's poetry, here's the grade we give it, because we think it's kind of, if our view was his poetry is quite consistent. I'm just saying that as an example.
Yeah. Basically what you're saying is you can make it up as you go along.
Make it, because it's our podcast and we can do what we like. Exactly.
Very good. And are we going to be able to change our minds in the future?
I think that's a good question. I think we should have some kind of cricket review system. What do you think? We can't relentlessly do that, but I think we're allowed 3 changes.
We should probably have either one or 2 formal reviews a year.
Okay.
And we can do it as a one-off show. We can run through the current scores, and if we want to change our minds, we can. Yeah, so I think that's what we should do.
Yeah, we'll probably review series, won't we? We'll probably, when we finish the alternative great tradition, which we're doing in the new year.
Yes.
Which is our kind of answer to F.R. Leavis in a way. We might, as part of reviewing that and having some overall thoughts about it, have a chance to review some of our
That's a good idea. Right. Okay. Time to put some marks. So we'll do this. We're going to go through each of the books we've covered, each of the episodes we've done, and Charlie's got a score and I've got a score. And I think we can comment or not comment, or criticize or not criticize, or scoff or not scoff, depending on how it goes. Excellent. So we start off with The Great Gatsby. That was you.
Yeah.
What are you giving it?
So it's got the word great in the title. It's referred to as the great American novel on the internet. But actually, if as our podcast makes clear, I think we didn't quite see it as having, it's a great American novel. It's a great novel about America, but it's not the great American novel that stands above others and takes its place among the very greatest in world literature. So I'd give it a 7 in that great, but just below masterpiece.
Okay, I'll give you my score in a minute. We should tell listeners that we haven't consulted on these marks before, so we've all marked them. We both marked them, but we haven't consulted. So these are going to be, the scores that we've given. So they may or may not tally. I always wonder on Strictly Come Dancing. I don't know if we have any listeners who watch it. It's actually got rather boring now. I don't watch it anymore. But the judges always come up with more or less the same mark, and I'm sure that they sort of confer beforehand. Anyway,
would it help if we held up a little thing with a number on?
We could do a paddle.
7.
So it's a 10 from me. Okay, so you gave Gatsby 6. Well, 7. I'm giving it a 6. I think it's a little below that. I think it's a wonderful book. Wonderful, wonderful book. Superb, but not great. I think that's probably about right.
Okay.
1984. That was our second one by George Orwell. I led that one. I think it's a brilliant book in many ways.
Mm.
And of course has had this huge lasting resonance and legacy in Western consciousness. I think you could probably say it's given so much to popular culture. It's very memorable. The atmosphere is it lasts with you. You know, the greyness of that world and the crushing of the spirit of Winston. It's all amazing stuff. His style is quite dry. There's very little sort of flourishes of what you might call wonderful writing. I think some of the characters are a bit two-dimensional. It's in many ways it's very much of its time. So I think it's I think it's a very fine but ultimately limited book, and I've given it a 5.
Yeah, that's what I've got nothing to add to that. In a sense, I completely agree. It's a 5. Sounds really harsh. This is the big scale.
Sorry, George.
So Emma. So Emma may be the greatest novel by an English writer, possibly Middlemarch. It's the style, it's the syntax, but it's an 8. It's not a 9 for me, because in a world literature context, it doesn't sit at the very top table. If someone pushed me and said why, probably say it's compared to the other greatest novels, it's the intellectual depth. And of course, in podcasts, we talk about how intellectual Emma and Jane Austen are in a very particular way, but nonetheless, in terms of how much it would speak across two other cultures, across world literature, I think an 8.
Okay, well, wonderful. We love Jane Austen. It's a wonderful book. There's something about it. It's just a tiny bit limited in its reach. In the Pride and Prejudice episode, we talked a bit about the quite refined world that Austen writes about. And it doesn't make it a less good book, but it doesn't necessarily give it the sort of grandeur of a War and Peace or something like that. So anyway, I've gone down 1 from you. I've given it 7.
Right, you're going for it today, Rue. Okay, you're going to go for Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights was me. Extraordinary book. Completely unique. It certainly has its faults. There's no question about that. It's quite clunky in places. The plot is labyrinthine, and some of the characters probably don't. Well, they're just so weird, aren't they? But memorable, extraordinary. Emily Bronte, hooray, hooray! So I've given it 6.
Oh, Rue. Okay, interesting. Okay, I gave it an 8.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it's the courage, it's the originality that dazzles. I think it's a clear work of genius.
Okay,
I think it's a masterpiece. I think Wuthering Heights is a masterpiece. Yeah.
Very good. Wasteland?
That's me, isn't it? I gave it a 9. So
okay,
I think
fine.
it's the great poem in English in the last 200 years. I think it's in the beyond genius category. It still hits us today, encompasses so much. It covers all of Western literature and culture. It attacks us intellectually and emotionally, offers us hope. The emotional range is just massive. It shocks. It leaves us with disgust, but ecstasy. It's a truly amazing bit of writing. I'd give it a 9.
I can't disagree with any of that. I actually gave it an 8. It's a masterpiece work, clear work of genius. Is it beyond genius? Is it one of the few truly great texts in world literature? Well, perhaps it is, but anyway, I've gone for 8. Rime of the Ancient Mariner, that was me. Interesting. Interesting. Well, is it very fine but ultimately limited? Well, you could say that. Or is it really good but clearly not great? Well, I gave it 4. Because I think it's really good. It may be great. I'm not sure it is necessarily great. And I think it's very peculiar. It's very specific. Maybe I marked it down because the rest of Coleridge, he's a wonderful writer, but it was the best thing he did. There's scraps of other stuff, but it's a little bit sparse, I think, after his prose was very good. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful poem, but I don't think it's anything like a Wasteland or a Prelude or a Paradise Lost.
I gave it 5. I think it's a wonderful work. It's definitely got proper originality, and it's one of the ones where doing the podcast really helped me appreciate and understand it better, I think.
Me too. Yeah.
What's next? Oh, Hamlet. Well, this was interesting
The
for me.
audacity of us scoring Hamlet anyway.
Yeah,
Let's give it a go.
because I think King Lear is Shakespeare's greatest play. And so my first reaction was, therefore, Hamlet's, you couldn't say it's never been better, because it has. So I'm giving it a 10. And my rationale for giving it a 10 is that it's really Shakespeare's work that's never been better, particularly his tragedies. And so I think to say it can't be a 10 because King Lear's better is kind of missing the point that it's that period of Shakespeare, that sort of middle period where he produced the greatest work.
I can't disagree with any of that. I gave it a 9. Am I saying that it could have been better? Well, I'm not sure it could really, but it's. I gave it a 9. I
Yeah.
can give it a 10.
Yeah. And then Macbeth.
Yes. So clearly, also transcendentally wonderful piece of literature with some of the most memorable lines ever written. It's got that slightly slow bit in the middle when they go to England. So I gave it 8 actually.
Yeah, I gave it a 9. It's less successful. If you look at those 4 great central tragedies, Othello, Hamlet, Lear, and Macbeth. Macbeth's the one where, I mean, it's got some amazing, obviously, parts to it, but I think it's ultimately more flawed.
Interesting. You're marking one higher than me on almost everything at the moment.
Loving it. I think I'm such a positive guy. Be interesting if that's the case in the modern ones. Let's see when we get there.
Yeah. Pride and Prejudice. I give him Pride and Prejudice 7. I think it's less. It's a less good novel, or it's a less great novel than Emma, but still a wonderful book. Special place in English literature. Everyone loves it. Elizabeth Bennet, hooray, hooray. Mr. Darcy, we all love him. So 7 out of 10 for me.
I gave it an 8. It's the same place as Emma. I agree. It's ultimately slightly less perfect than Emma is, but those kind of strengths of Jane Austen are apparent. And I think it's got some things in it that Emma doesn't have. Some of the characters, some of the wit. Middlemarch. Yeah, I gave it an 8. Just the sheer range. So for me, I'm seeing Emma, Middlemarch, Wuthering Heights. I'm seeing those as the kind of the best novels written by English writers, the great the masterpieces written by English writers. So I'm giving Middlemarch sort of the same mark.
I gave it 8 too.
Okay, interesting.
But not quite the very, 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 very top. Heart of Darkness, Conrad. Interesting. One of my favorite books, as I think I said on the podcast. But is it at this level? It's a masterpiece. It's very short. It's quite dense. The sort of intense style doesn't work for everyone. I think the racism is complicated. I'm not sure you specifically mark it down for that, but you could say that, as you said when we did the podcast, his depiction of black characters, of African characters, is pretty feeble, but nonetheless a remarkable book. I gave it 6.
Ooh, okay. I gave it 7. Similar reasons, I think. I think it's a bit wooden in comparison to some of the other top level texts we're talking about, and I think there is a sort of strained manner at moments. And so I think it's incredible that it's his third language and he's able to write that novel.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think I think that is an aspect of the style, something not quite natural about certain parts of it.
Yeah.
So I gave it 7. Yeah,
okay,
I think
good.
it's a great novel.
Henry James, Wings of a Dove.
Yeah, I was quite borderline on this, I've got to say, because it's so abstruse.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a defining moment in the novel. I think not just the influence of it, but the brilliance. I feel a little bit about this actually as I do about Jane Austen, which is that it's the syntax. Every sentence is like a poem. And so I gave it an 8.
I gave it 7.
Yeah, I was tempted, but yeah.
Clearly great writer. I hadn't really read much Henry James. I read Portrait of a Lady a long time ago, and I read Turn of the Screw, I think, but I hadn't read this before, so it was new to me. And you need to take a run up, don't you, when you're reading it? It's not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it is. It's a work of genius. There's no question about it. Very impressionistic, very modern, very clever. but very human as well. But I think it's you're right. The complexity is sort of you score it down for that, but it just makes it sort of slightly less accessible. So yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the modern books we did. It's unfair, really, to sort of put these up against the sort of greatest works in English. Right, Seven Moons of Maui Almeida. Look, I really like this book. Fantastic fun, very, very innovative, imaginative, huge amounts of energy, so interesting about the Sri Lankan Civil War. I'd recommend it to anyone. I think anyone could and should read it. I think it's absolutely great. But on a list like this, it's good. It's good. Pretty successful, but I think it's flawed quite a lot. It's a bit chaotic. It's a bit disorganized.
Right.
So I give it 2.
Okay. I gave it a 3. I thought it's successful. I thought it's a strong novel. I feel that it achieves what it wants to. I also felt some of that chaos is A, deliberate, and B, cultural. As in it's to reflecting the religion and culture of the subcontinent, but compared to some of these other novels, it doesn't approach the great scale.
No.
I give it 4.5. If I was doing a book review, should we come in with that? I give it 4.5 stars out of 5 because I think it's a wonderful novel.
Yes. Okay. Or we'll come back to the book review at the end. Perhaps,
maybe I need to think. I just charged in. I was trying to compensate.
Yes.
Maybe I need to think before I say that.
Exactly, trying to compensate.
Okay. So what's next? So Wolf Hall.
Wolf Hall,
as well.
yes. Well, as you know, I think this is a wonderful book. But again, you're trying to sort of put it into this list. And it's sort of in the middle, maybe below the middle. Very fine, but ultimately limited, possibly. I actually went for 4, which is really good, but clearly not great. I may review that because I still haven't quite settled on it. I think it's, the reading experience of it is very immersive and you are there. I think your comments about Cromwell are valid, that he's a sort of absurdly competent 21st century person in the book, and he clearly wasn't that in real life. But he was very, he was certainly competent in real life, and but he probably wasn't a very nice person. When he is a very nice person in this book. Well, does that matter? Does it not matter? I still haven't quite worked it out. So 4 for me. I think it probably is a bit too long. I think she gets a bit carried away with some of the subplots.
I give it a 2. I'm so pleased to be giving a lower mark than you. Right?
You gave 2, did you? Okay.
Yeah. For me, its quality is variable. Even looking at my criteria, it's got some tremendous aspects, but I think for me it lacks punch. You'd have some disagreement.
Absolutely. Milkman, that was you.
I thought Milkman was tremendous. So it's somewhere between 3 and 4. So it's brilliant writing. It's clearly within its time and genre. Is it a successful novel or is it better than that? I think it's better than that. So I would give Milkman a 4.
Okay, I've gone 3. I think it's successful, strong. And again, I might upgrade that at some point. I need to sort of think it through a bit more, but it's she maintains the conceit the whole way through very well. But she doesn't slip up at all, does she? The tone and the energy and the mood is maintained. I'm just not entirely convinced about the basic premise of this girl. She's 18. Did she really experience it like this, or was she actually a bit more savvy underneath what was going on? I haven't quite thought it through yet. But, I agree. Wonderful book. And again, another one we should say everyone should read. It's well worth reading. It really is.
Yeah.
And finally, most recently, Lincoln in the Bardo.
Which you led.
Which I led. I'm very unsure about this book. I think it's very clever. I think the treatment of Lincoln is very interesting. And picking this moment in time where we're at the start of the Civil War, things are unclear. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's just the future of slavery and the future of the United States of America that he's got to sort out, and his son dies, and he deals with it all. I mean, that stuff is done very well, but all the ghosts and it doesn't quite work for me, if I'm honest. I think it's too clever by half. The ghosts don't really distinguish between themselves. I thought some of the sort of supernatural stuff, the glimpses of heaven and hell, are a bit sort of woo-woo. But he's a wonderful writer, and parts of it are great. So I think it's good. I think it's good. It's a 2.
Two.
It's a 2.
I give it a 3. It's interesting. I as I was going through these novels, I think I said this in the podcast. Whilst reading the book and immersing myself in, I just found some of the episodes so beautiful that it kind of carried me. But when I stepped outside of it, I think I felt quite a lot of the things that you just described. So, but I think it's got something really special about it in a lot of places, but it just doesn't quite work as a whole text. So, 3 for me.
So, well, there we are. Those are the books we've done so far. As a rough summary, at number 1, we've got Hamlet, 9.5. And below that, we've got Macbeth and Wasteland. They're both 8s and 9s. Middlemarch is an 8. Wuthering Heights is a 7. So there's definitely a ranking there. And the modern books, we've scored quite a lot lower, haven't we, than some of the classics? And not surprisingly, it doesn't mean we don't like them and they're not good. It's just that they don't necessarily have the same quality.
Yeah, really, I think it's ultimately it's like our opinion. If we look at those top grades, there's nothing very controversial about any of that, really. And it just enables us, I think, to be clear about where we're placing these texts. It gives us a mechanism for doing that. Obviously, it's not about our number; it's about us communicating why we would make those decisions.
It's interesting that we, as I said at the start, we didn't consult and confer on this at all. And we just marked 16 books, and on 12 of them, you marked 1 point higher than I did. So,
and do you think that's just reading the criteria differently?
I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, let's keep an eye on that moving forwards. Again, at the end of the day, it may be one for us to revisit in time. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it would be boring if we scored the same for everything.
Of course.
So, give a book review score briefly to those 4 recent books. Shooting from the hip, on 7 Moons, I would say that I really enjoyed reading it. That's a sort of 4 points for that. In terms of the quality, I'd give it 3, so I give it 7 out of 10.
Okay. So, thinking about comparing it to other novels that are written generally at the moment and that I read, I think I absolutely loved it. And so I think I'd give it 8 or 9 out of 10. I'm going to give it 8 to be conservative. 8 out of 10.
Okay. Wolf Hall, you go.
Okay. It's difficult because my level of enjoyment of it is somewhat tempered by the fact that Hilary Mantel is regarded, has won the Booker Prize twice and gets such a, euphoric kind of reception. And so I'm like, And so I've got to put all that out of my head because that's not fair to Hilary Mantel or the book. So I enjoyed it. I definitely did. I think my enjoyment is probably a 3 and the quality of it is probably a 4. So it's probably a 7 out of 10 for me.
Okay, I'd go 8. Milkman, I think technically it's pretty well done and well executed. The content is interesting. The sort of insight into the IRA and what life was like is fascinating. Actually, it really is. And I expect there's quite a lot of truth in it. They were these sort of slightly sort of self-important thugs, a lot of them. So I'm going to give it slightly hard to read. Again, you need to take a bit of a run up, but I think I'd give it a 6.
I'd give it an 8. I think it's a high quality novel. Loved it. 4 on each of the 2 things. So
yes, and Lincoln, I'm going to give that. I'm going to give that 4. It's 2 for the technical stuff. The sort of format, the way the ghost's speech is reported, and the italicized names at the bottom. It's all just a bit too clever by half for me. So I'm giving that 2, and the enjoyment I give it. Actually, I might give it 3 for the enjoyment. So I give it 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10.
I think I'd give it a 7. I think
Okay.
I'm not comparing it to other Booker winners. I'm guessing we're comparing it to books that we read, books that are around about. So I would say technically it's a 4. I enjoyed it. No, enjoyment's a 4. Technically it's a 3. I'll give it a 7. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, that's a lot of marking. It's a lot of
I'm exhausted.
Great. I hope you all enjoyed that. As I say, we'll make these scores available somewhere, and we will review them from time to time.
And we'll do this text by text as we go forward.
Excellent. So we're back very shortly with some poetry. Charlie's going to be doing Sylvia Plath. Not cheerful, but very, very, very interesting. And I will be doing Philip Larkin, which is a bit more cheerful. He was a bit gloomy, but he had a spark of fun as well, I think. And then we're going to be into our series of Christmas books, which we hope you'll enjoy, and there should be some old favourites in there as well. So we hope you enjoyed that, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.